Hey y'all, it's Allie G and welcome to FAFO True Crime Podcast with a twist. I've been a true crime lover for as long as I can remember. This true crime podcast has been a dream come true, years in the making, and I could not be more excited to bring it to life. My goal is not to be someone who takes what I read or listen to about a crime and just talks about it. Believe me, I do the research. I'm a mother of two boys, a wife, and just a true crime lover, really. And in my experience, seeing the justice system not always work made me realize that I have an opinion to bring to the table that I think y'all would enjoy. I have a true passion for the criminal justice system, true crime, and including but not limited to the victims, the perpetrators, that result from these horrific crimes talked about on FAFO. So, sit back and enjoy the ride. Okay, little warning. This podcast is not intended for the young or the faint of heart. I will be talking about true crimes, true victims, crimes of all nature. Nothing is off limits. So, just be advised, and we're going to find out that most of the time the perpetrators have fucked around and found out. So let's go. Okay. Today's case is all over the news right now. I have been researching this case for months, and there's just so much information out there that honestly I didn't even know if I was going to put an episode out, because you can go on YouTube, TikTok, there's a Netflix documentary, all this stuff is coming out, and it's the Mackenzie Shrilla case where she allegedly was convicted of ramming her car into a brick building, surviving, but had two victims that passed away. So I will be glancing at my notes and looking down, because I needed to portray to y'all not just my opinion, but also the facts. And like I said, this case is so huge. There's so much information that I want to do it justice. So, like I said, it's a huge case, and it goes so far past the actual crime, which was the car accident. The details of the story is what I want to pass on to y'all, but not necessarily the crime that was committed, because frankly, I mean, was open and shut. With this case, all the things that are coming out after the trial, text messages, pictures, communication between her and Dom, her boyfriend, her parents just embarrassingly trying to get her model contracts, all this stuff. Jailhouse phone calls between her and her mom, people that have served time in the same jail that she's in, are coming forward with all kinds of information. So, this is what I'm going to focus on. I may do a follow-up episode on all of her shenanigans, but probably not, because there's current actions from her daily, like ridiculousness. And there's so many podcasters out there putting the information out, and it's just 20 different things all day long. Like, it's really too much. And then the documentary on Netflix, that they did not tell us everything. You get the gist of it, but other than that, no. And I want to tell y'all that I really had a hard time trying to decide if I was even going to finish my research because it's so much to unpack. But a couple of things about this case that really did, I guess, pique my interest to it. And one of them is that she was claiming to have a medical condition called POTS. And that is polyorthostatic tachycardia, which means when you sit up from a laying position or when you stand from a sitting position, your blood pressure drops so low that you just won't go out, pass out, faint. Okay, I have been under treatment recently for that medical condition. So the fact that she's claiming that she had that without a diagnosis, like, almost kind of made me mad because I'm living it right now. I have stitches in my hip to prove it right now. But the second reason I wanted to continue to tell the story is because of a forgotten passenger named Davion Flanagan. I am an advocate for victims, and I'm not paying less attention to Dominic Russo. But as I said, this would be a never-ending episode if I just covered it all. And I don't have time for that because I'm on my next case that I can't wait to bring to y'all. So without further ado, let's start unpacking. So today we're going to go to Strongsville, Ohio, which is a suburb about 15 miles from Cleveland. It's a nice, quiet suburb and has been described as a family community. Just an all-around good place to live. I have never been there, but in doing my research, the area is beautiful. There's lots of trees in the cute little town square. It's just quaint and clean and kind of like a Hallmark movie, but it's a really nice place. So the main three people involved in this horrible case is Mackenzie Shrilla, the driver, Dominic Russo, her boyfriend, and Davion Flanagan, who was just the third person in the car, a good friend of theirs, so he was in the back seat. And we're going to start with the bright and polite 19-year-old Davion. He is a victim that gets shadowed when this case is discussed. He is described as a forgotten victim, not just cargo. Which, by the way, that's the name of this episode. Not just cargo. Because if you think about it after hearing his story, you'll find out that he wasn't just cargo. He was a great kid and he was slated to have a bright future. And I'm going to make sure that y'all know who he was and that we say his name because he mattered. His sisters mattered. His family, his mom and dad matter. Okay? It's something that's near and dear to my heart because I've lost a child and I can relate to these parents. And the best thing that I can do is advocate, tell their story when they may not be able to. You know, this podcast could reach who knows where. I hope it reaches everywhere because I hope y'all share. But it's important to say Davion Flanagan's name. And it's important to know who he is, where he came from. At 19 years old, you're going to find that the longer you listen to me talk about him, that in his short 19 years of life, he has been through so much. So On August 9th, Davion's mom and dad were interviewed by one of the detectives. And this was the first time that they talked to a detective, and they I don't want to say they have word vomit, but they had a lot to say about him, and it was a very in-depth interview that I listened to, took notes on, and just took away what kind of person Davion was. He was a person with a big heart, and sometimes it was to his detriment. But he was loyal and faithful to everyone that he loved. If you needed him, whether you were a family or a friend, he was always there. He was passionate about football, which was one of his dreams. At 8.5 years old, they got him from foster care, so the Flanagans adopted him. He had never had the chance to be in organized sports until then. His mom chuckled and said, "Does it have to be football?" I hear you, sister. I know. I had the same feeling. But it's what he loved. And he would eventually be starting running back his senior year for Strongsville High School, which was something that he dreamed about and he accomplished by hard work and determination. It was short-lived, though, because in 3 games into the season, he tore his ACL. So it was not only a season ending, but a career ending football story, because it was his senior year. And his dad speaks very honestly and says that he thinks that this football injury is probably what started his downward spiral, because he lost his passion. His mom said he was a bit of a rebel at the age of 19, like most teenagers that age go through. She goes on to say that he was an old soul, wise beyond his years, and how proud they were to call him their son. He was exposed to so much in his 8.5 years before he was adopted by them. He saw things that should never ever be seen by a child. He was kind and a loving brother, always very protective of his sisters. His dream career was to be a barber. I think that's just so cool. It was important to the Flanagans to keep the 3 biological siblings together. So he and his 2 younger sisters were adopted by the Flanagans. His mom proudly, and even with a chuckle, said he was very hardworking, funny, charming, and handsome. Don't we all think our baby boys are funny, charming, and handsome? We do. And like I said, he wanted to be a barber. He actually was the barber for the football team and the coaches. His mom laughed and said that there was always hair everywhere, because they would come sit in her kitchen and she would cut their hair. And he wanted to make a name for himself. He wanted to have his own shop someday right there in Strongsville. And his parents, they talked about him being a fireman, a police officer, because he was so strong and athletic. And he even did a little summer internship with the fire department and also with law enforcement, but it wasn't his thing. He really just wanted to have his own business and become a barber. So he would have to save money to go to barber school, and there was a year wait list. So it was perfect for him, because he could live at home, work full time, save money for his tuition, and by the time it was his turn, he'd have his money, he'd had everything figured out, all that. He was also very mechanically inclined. He loved to take things apart, see what the rhyme and reason was, and put it back together. He even spent a lot of time at their neighbor's house. I think he was working on a car, something. He was working on a car, some bikes, or a motorbike, something like that. But he just really was mechanically inclined. And they say that he was a great human. And I love that part, because we all want to believe that our children are great humans, because, that's the way we raised them. And the Flanagans were always getting compliments about that, about how amazing of a human he was. And if you're a parent of a college age or over 21 young adult son, in this day and time, it's very, very important, and really makes you feel like you did your job when someone says that they're respectful and just all around good human. So, like I said, they're speaking with the detective. Then the detective asks about that downward spiral and if they were comfortable talking about it. They said, sure. If it helps with the investigation, we'll tell you anything you want to know. So they were very forthcoming. So before he got into the care of the Flanagans, he had no trust in anyone and had severe abandonment issues. It's very obvious that in the first 8.5 years of his life, he experienced so much trauma, but he also had to be the strength and the backbone for his 2 younger sisters. And that we'll talk more about in a little bit. But the Flanagans worked hard to build that trust up with him. And he was also a popular kid, so there were negative influences all around him. Like, he didn't have a clique. He got along with everyone. The stoners, the popular kids, the band geeks, like, one side to the other. He had a friend in everybody. He never, ever met a stranger. So they admitted that they themselves had prior marital problems. Mr. Flanagan was dealing with undiagnosed bipolar and made some decisions that he takes full responsibility of during the manic episodes. The problem led to infidelity issues, and it affected Davion because he felt he was in a safe place, and that emotional safety was threatened by the Flanagans' problems as his parents. Obviously he knew what to look for. Look at everything he'd been through by the age of 8.5. So Mrs. Flanagan tried to shield the kids from it, but they were observant and aware of what was going on. They worked hard. They went through counseling, and they all found God together. They expressed that they were all even baptized on the same day as a family, and it just happened to be Easter Sunday. How special is that? I really think that's so special. It's such a blessing, and it just touched my heart so deeply, because as a family, like, the family unit to me is so important to children, especially children of Davion and his sister's background, for as long as they had to go through it. And that family struggled with mental illness, so that caused him, by inheritance, some depression and anxiety. And while they were trying to find the right cocktail of meds, he self-medicated with marijuana, and it helped him to be calm. He was fiercely independent. He was watching the adults in his biological and even prior foster families just do really, really bad things. I'm sorry, I can't imagine. But anyway, during the interview, his dad asked if the recording could be paused, and the detective said no. He said he wanted to know, he said no, and the parents said, we just don't know what you want to hear, like you want us to divulge everything. And the detective basically said, whatever y'all are comfortable sharing is what I want y'all to share. So I get out my little highlighter so I keep going. So the detective said he wanted to know Davion totally, because in investigating, he wanted to connect as if he was investigating his own brother. That detective said that. Like, this detective, I just think, was just the epitome of great law enforcement. He just was great with these two parents who had so much to say about their son. So I was so happy to come across this interview, because it was exactly what I wanted to put out there about this particular victim, Davion. They did say that he had explosive episodes at home, like punching the wall or flipping a bed. He was free with his friends because his parents would not hold him accountable to these episodes. So he moved out for a period of about 3 months because he didn't like the consequences of his actions. He came back, and he was more focused on becoming a man and being independent. He even apologized to his sisters because he felt that he abandoned them, and that brought back for them past trauma of not being able to trust anybody but Davion. So this is when he moves back home. He gets close to Mackenzie and Dom, to which his parents said very recently they became close, but they knew each other in high school. This is when he got back into the marijuana scene because they could provide it. And he wanted to be close to people that had unlimited access to it. Like I said, his parents were very, very forthcoming and honest. Then he had an epiphany about the last 2 weeks of his life, where he told his mom that he was going to quit all of it. He never brought either of those friends around to his parents' house. There was an incident that happened in front of their house, and the way they described it, like I think Davion was driving, and whatever came of it, I think he was charged with something with underage kids. He was giving them a ride or something. But anyway, his dad used the phrase, show me your friends and I will show you your future. So the family was going on vacation for 2 weeks, and they needed to find Davion a place to stay because they did not trust him enough to leave him home by himself. And he had to stay home, and because you're probably wondering, well, why didn't he go on vacation with his family? Well, because he had a full-time job that he just started, and he needed the money, and there was no way that he could just go to his boss and he was like, hey, thanks for hiring me, but I need 2 weeks off to go to the beach. So they needed a place where they felt it was safe for him to stay. So Dom's parents lived next door to Davian's parents. So Davian's parents felt comfortable, and they even gave them about $200 to help out with food while they were gone. At that time, they had no idea that Dom was a drug dealer. So to make this long story short, his parents were on vacation in North Carolina when this happened. The accident. The last communication they had was Friday night, the 29th of July, in which he texted and said he loved them and he hopes they have a great time. The detective asked them who some of his close friends were besides Mackenzie and Dom that would be on the drug scene. In the end, and we'll talk about those friends some more in a minute, but in the end, his heart was so big, and it was to his detriment. And it attracted all kinds of characters, including minors that were drinking and drugs. He wanted to help them. Like, he did not in any way, shape, or form want to enable them. He wanted to be there for that 2-3 o'clock in the morning phone call. We need a ride home. We're 15. We're sauced. Can't drive. Don't want to call our parents. Can you please come get us and bring us home? And that did get him in a little bit of trouble because he did get charged 4 times with the contributing to the delinquency of minors just for getting them home safely. Those charges were eventually dropped because he thought he was helping a good friend. He thought he was being a good friend to them, and his parents said giving them help would have been taking them to an adult. The detective then wrapped it up by saying this is like a tale of two cities. He was very glad that he had this sit down with them because it felt like he got to know Davion on a human level. Misguided, albeit, but Davion just had a big heart. The detective just wanted to establish a baseline for Davion because this was early in the investigation. I mean, these parents sat down with this interview with the detective a day after they went to the funeral home. Oh, and this is something I forgot to tell y'all when I was talking about him being a barber and doing the football team and the coach's hair in his kitchen. The lady at the funeral home even told his parents that she did not have to do anything to his hair because it was perfect. Because Davion took care of that hair and that money maker. So the lady at the funeral and his mom chuckled about it. I mean, being there before and knowing what it feels like to go to a funeral home and plan your son's funeral, I'm sure that even to her, that it was a compliment and it was just positive and something nice to hear. So you could tell his parents were tired, because they had just been in the funeral home. They had to leave their vacation early. Like it just seemed like a boom, boom, boom. Like all these things just coming together. And they sounded like a little all over the place, and they would try to finish each other's sentence about a story they were telling about Davion. You can tell that they were both very involved. They both cared extremely hard for Davion. So they continued to talk about it. I mean, the detective wanted to hear everything that they had to say. So he was simply just a friend. And he wasn't involved in any drama. He didn't like drama. And he was a friend that was in the wrong place at the wrong time. His mom said it was a great time of the year. All the kids were going to graduation parties, so she knew Davion was out with friends, Dominique, Dominic, and Mackenzie. All three of the kids grew up in Strongsville. Their families lived there. And according to family and friends, they were all just hanging out that night. They were playing on an inflatable obstacle course and all planned on spending the night. So, like, not sure if they were going to stay up all night, or they were just all would stay at one of them's house. Like, they were a friend group that just liked each other's company and all stayed around. So the three of them woke up to closely 5 a.m. and decided to go home. Mackenzie was driving. Dom was in the front seat. Davion was in the back seat. She uses her blinker. She slows down before turning. She made a right-hand turn, and if you watch the video, it's all over the place. You can see the vehicle looks very controlled. She looks very controlled. She's using her blinker. Like, it looks like there's nothing she could even be pulled over for. 58 to 59 seconds. The car was like a missile going over 100 miles an hour. 100. The car was unrecognizable. I'll try to post some pictures on my YouTube for y'all to see. But like I said, the video and the pictures are, even the body cam from the police, it's all out there. You can look it up. This happened early on a Sunday morning, and it was 45 minutes before a passerby saw the wreckage and called 911. All the caller said that there was a car that smashed into a sign and then into the brick building. And it flipped. The car flipped. Sorry, I got a little off. It truly was one of the most horrific crash sites the police department and prosecutors had ever seen. So the officers called for more units as well as ambulances to come to the scene. The body cam shows the hurriedness of the officers. It showed their strength. It showed their compassion. It showed the fact that they're human and that they were traumatized by this accident. One of the officers was trying to bust out the window, and he says it's not a fresh accident either. And you can tell that he was using every ounce of strength that was in him to find a way into that car. He shouts out that there are at least 2 occupants in the vehicle and no one is moving. He just keeps on saying, "Oh my God, oh my God." There are 3 occupants and no one is moving. Everyone is unconscious. It's bad, dude. She's alive and we're trying to get her out, and I don't know if I can. Now remember, the fire department had not shown up yet, so there was no extraction tools, the jaws of life, or anything that could help with them trying to get into the car. The driver, Mackenzie, was pinned under the dashboard and still breathing. She had to be extracted with the jaws of life. She had visible broken just about all of the bones. I mean, she had a lot. She needed to be life flighted. They found Dom and Davion not wearing seat belts and stacked on top of each other, which means Dom his seat ended up in the back seat and vice versa. They actually couldn't tell. I mean, they could tell Dom was in the front, but they ended up finding them on top of each other. They were killed instantly, and you could hear the officer on his body cam say, "Rest in peace, buddy." The officer also said, "This will be a nightmare of a day for the whole department." Davion's dad said they finally called him around lunchtime, and the police detective asked him if he was the father of Davion Flanagan. That there was a horrible car crash, and then he told him that his son didn't make it. His dad said it was just a gut punch. His mom said he was the oldest of 3 that they adopted through foster care. Davion, like I said, was the starting running back at Strongsville High. And she adds that when they got this call, it completely changed their lives and shattered all of their dreams. They, meaning other family members, went to see Mackenzie in the hospital and were shocked that her and her parents were hesitant to talk to them. The detective told them that whether she cooperates is completely up to her and her lawyer. The detective did record some of the conversation with her and her mother. He advised that the crime that they are investigating was aggravated vehicular homicide ×2, which means the charge was towards the driver, that they unintentionally caused the death of another human being by driving recklessly and being under the influence. And they do have people approaching them with tips and information. Mackenzie asks if she can say something, and all of a sudden she starts talking to her mom in another language that they have called it out in all the podcasts and YouTube and even in some of the court footage, that it was gibberish. It was like pig Latin. And honestly, gibberish is the only way I can think about it. And the first time I heard her speak it, I thought, there's no way her mom can understand what she's saying, because it was literally but inflections and up and down in her voice, and up to a question after the gibberish. It's just the craziest thing that I've ever heard in my life. But she was in fact asking her mom if she had a seizure or something. One of the first things she asked the detective is, "Can you just take my driver's license away for like 10 years? That instantly makes them think that she's feeling some sort of guilt, and that this may very well have been a planned accident. Can you imagine? Like a group of friends, so close, parents, and they all now think she's a murderer? Like, to me, that's unconscionable. Like, I couldn't think of anyone I know that would purposely drive their car 100 miles an hour into a brick building on purpose. And like I said, I could go on and on with this episode because there is so much shit to unpack. There were so many times that I teared up. I got pissed. I just kept thinking to myself, is this real life? Like, does this really happen? Do people really do this? And some people could say I'm naive or whatever. Whatever anybody wants to call me. What I can tell you is what you can't call me is a murderer, because that's unconscionable to me. I could never think, ever want to take someone else's life. Whether I knew him, whether I didn't know him. I don't want to take my own life. I am too cute to die or go to jail, boo. So the way I think about it is you just need to live by what the good Lord tells you to do, and you just get on up to heaven when it's your time. We do not murder our friends by purposely driving your car into a brick building at 100 miles an hour and speaking gibberish with your mom and telling your mom, just tell him I had a seizure. Then her mom translates the gibberish and says, oh, she doesn't remember anything. She must have passed out or had a seizure. I ain't trying to go on about that because I'll go on forever. So they checked on her social media. You know, these kids, they just put everything on social media every minute, every second of their life. And it offered a possible clue. They found a video post on her social media account that said, I'm not even cool. I'm just one of those girls who can do a lot of drugs and not die. Because yes, she posted herself driving erratically while smoking a joint. I don't know. I can't think about what was going through her head. It is all Greek or gibberish to me. It doesn't make sense. The detective said that she was a person who regularly smoked marijuana and drove her car. They did find her clothing, and in her clothing, they found 8 grams of, I'm going to try to say this word right because it comes up a lot. It's a type of mushroom, and it's called psilocybin. Legit, that's how you pronounce it, is psilocybin. So, and she tested positive for some controlled substance. They found marijuana in her duffel bag. They also found a scale. And so, being the nerd I am, I went down the rabbit hole to find about this psilocybin mushroom thing. I wanted to know what it was, where it came from, how does a person acquire it, what is the effect it has on a human. So here's a little education about these shrooms. The clinical definition of psilocybin mushrooms is a type of hallucinogenic mushroom and an informal group of fungi. It is a broad group of fungi across many genres. It's considered to be a recreational drug. If ingested, the sensory effects are visual and auditory hallucinations, followed by emotional changes and altered perceptions of time and space. Emotional effects are hilarity, lack of concentration, and muscular relaxation. It can also be, it can cause heightened anxiety because you're paranoid, and the inability to discern fantasy from reality. In higher doses, panic attacks and psychosis can occur. I didn't really look up how much 8 grams was it, but I'm pretty sure it's not what a 17-year-old should have had. Okay, now that we know about the psilocybin mushrooms, what she asked her mom to tell the police, when she asked her mom to tell the police, they immediately got a search warrant for all her medical records. And they found that she had not reported any sort of blacking out or neurological failure. So they left wondering if the Toyota Camry had some sort of malfunction that led to the crash. Because if she didn't pass out and the car was operating correctly, then what the hell happened? What's the other explanation? And I'm afraid it's not something that any normal human being that has a soul or a heart would even ever think about. But I'll leave that up to y'all. Y'all want to check the case out, and you can open up the internet every day and find out what Mackenzie's doing each moment of the day, because she sure is out there doing the damn thing in prison, girl. So they checked they had I can't even say the word, specialist, a car specialist. Okay, I didn't even know they had forensic specialists for cars, but they do. So he checked the steering system, the suspension, the brake system, the accelerator, and determined the crash was not any kind of mechanical failure. So the forensic mechanic car man said that nothing was wrong with the car. And by the way, the car has a black box. I didn't know cars had black boxes. I guess you learn something new every day. And the black box came back with no malfunction either. But the first break in the case was from a close friend of Davion, and his name was Tyler Croy. He told the detectives that he was just really in shock and didn't know how to process it all. Also, just knowing Davion, he just knew there was more to the story than an accidental crash. They all used the app Life 360 and could track each other's phone wherever they were. And it was for safety purposes, really. When the parents explained, and this Tyler explained why they used the app, it was very admirable to me that these teenagers, young adults, shared their location with friends, so that they could all know where where everyone was. So they all used the app of Life 360, like I said, and wherever Davion was, his phone would ping to Tyler's phone. So Tyler and Davion were very close, and they kept very close tabs on each other. So Tyler decided to look at his movements from July 30th, 2022, the night before the accident. It showed that the car got to a top speed of over 90 miles an hour, and there was absolutely no effort to hit the brakes. Tyler thought it was important for the police to know this, as it might help them to investigate a little bit better. This was actually the first time that the police had anything to tell them just how fast Mackenzie was driving. And it really triggered them that something was not right with the scenario. Something was off. If it wasn't mechanical error, if it wasn't a driver under the influence, then like I said, what was it? So, stopping now. I'm not talking about the case. That's the basics. This episode is about Davion Flanagan. Remember, say his name, Davion Flanagan. So I'm going to conclude with the victim impact statements for Davion at her sentencing trial. And a victim impact statement is when a family member, a friend, comes up and speaks to the judge about how the loss of their loved one has affected their lives. And Davion's mom was the first one to get up and speak on behalf of Davion. She starts off by telling the judge all of Davion's attributes that I already shared with y'all. She goes on to say that Davion and his sisters, who were biological siblings and were all adopted, and how honored she and their dad were to have been chosen. And it was important for them to all be kept together. She said the world just lost a truly special man. And my girls lost their best friend, their protector, and their strength, all in day one, or from their day one. She says their son was so much more than cargo. She also said she hopes that Mackenzie will find remorse in her heart. Then she goes on to thank all that have worked tirelessly to bring justice for her son. She concludes with a shout out to Davion. And let me just tell y'all, Mackenzie, the way they had the camera situated on Mrs. Flanagan, straight behind her right shoulder, you could see Mackenzie. So this was a judge trial, not a jury trial. So when the victims got up to talk about it, they were speaking directly to the judge. So Mackenzie was behind. And when I first saw her in the way she acted, I thought maybe she does have a little remorse. But the longer I looked at it, the longer I looked at her, I paid attention to her fake tears, her body language, slumping down in her chair. Just, it was all an act. I firmly believe that it was all an act and nothing more. She was trying to get sympathy and didn't really work. But anyway, the next person to come up and speak after his mom was his younger sister, Divine Flanagan. Gosh, she loved Davion. Her and their other little sister just looked up to him so much. She said the loss of her brother has been very difficult. We have gone through everything together since day one, she says. Since Davion's passing, a lot of trauma from our previous life in foster care and has crept back into her heart and her mind. And to look at this very special young lady, she has a button on her lapel with Davion's face on it, which I just thought was so cool. For as young as she is, she looks very poised, put together, and I'm sure it took her every ounce of strength that she had to get up there in front of the court and read her statement. It seems like a little sister who'd lost their number one since day one. She says, the memories I have of him are strong and they teach me the importance of life. She also said that Davion was her person, and she really trusted Davion to make her feel safe, and that he taught her to live in the moment and just embrace the moment and enjoy it in any way that she could, and don't ever take things for granted. So she was very appreciative, and losing Davion taught her the importance of life. And she also said that God shows her that things in life happen that she can't understand, but that will be worth it in the end. She continues to say that she doesn't want this pain for anyone else. So here's this little sister up there talking about her pain and what a wonderful person Davion was. And just to see this young teenager, preteen, like, I think she's only like 12. And the other sister is like 8 or 9. Like, to be so vulnerable and be up there. And she says she never wants anyone else to go through this. She was thinking about other people, strangers even, that she prayed about and hoped that people would never have to go through what she's going through. And I get it. She says that she hates the fact that he's gone because someone else decided to take his life. And now that he's gone, she feels stuck. She feels as if she can't move forward and she's lost. He was the one who picked her up when she fell. He was my best friend, she said, and the only person that stayed with me since I was born. Then her final request that she would like the judge to give Mackenzie the maximum sentence possible. She says, I've known Mackenzie for about 3 years, and she has always taken the easy way out. And finally, she says that someday Mackenzie will be eligible for parole, but her brother is gone forever. She thanked the court and walked away from the podium. So let's talk about the sentencing. It's not, I mean, it's really easy. Her mom got up there on behalf of the defense and was begging the judge and pleading with the judge, to go easy on her, and the judge just basically like flicked her like a little bug, because it's good stuff. Go watch it. So she got lifetime suspension of her driver's license, and she received 15 years in jail with the eligibility of parole. So, even her lawyer said that the parole board never grants anyone parole the first time they go up. So he said that for sure it would probably be 20 years before she would be considered for parole, and promised that she had been taking every class, doing all the Bible studies, soaking up everything the jail had to offer her, when in fact she got to wear blue jeans. She was the only one. She compares herself to what's her name in Mean Girls? Anyway, the movie Mean Girls. She compares herself to the villain in Mean Girls. So to wrap all this up, as you can tell, Davion was special to a lot of people. So much so, his friend had him on Life 360. And really, in closing, I would just like to say to you, Mackenzie, I say the next 15 to 20 years may be hard on you. But for the victim's family, it will be a lifetime of pain and sadness. While I want to believe this was an accident at the hands of a 17-year-old girl, I absolutely know that this was a calculated murder of two innocent people at the hands of what you have been called Shrilla the Killer.